Okay, guys. I have been waiting on this freaking book. This freaking book. And we're about to do some nails. Now, I had done this nail, but then I don't like it. So we're going to finish these nails. I was almost going to call it like suit and tie, but then that might be petty because, Brittany and Justin. So yeah, we are here. Hold on. A little apple juice. We are here to review the book. Now, I'm not going to give you like the whole entire book because if you want to read it, I don't want to spoil it for you. This is not an Audible, what do you call that, ad or anything like that. If you have Prime from Amazon, you more than likely have two credits you're not using. And I had 2 credits and one. And I pre got this book like, what is it, pre-purchase? Is it a purchase if you're getting it for free? Anyway, is it free if I'm paying through Amazon? Questions my mind will answer later. Anyway, so I don't want to spoil it because most of us have Amazon Prime, and if you got credits, you might want to read this book. But what we're going to do is get into a little tea. I know you can read books on YouTube, but I'm not sure how it counts, like if Audible counts as like copyrighted content. So I do not own the rights to this literature, and I just want to say that. So we're going to stop in between so that it's actually commentary and not just me sitting here playing Britney Spears' book. And not only that, people have been asking me for like a more detailed bling, like how I put the clusters together a little bit more so that y'all can see, like slow down. So I figured this was a great time for you to, like, for me, girl, it is late. Okay, shit. For me to show you the bling, kind of like slow down. We're gonna build some clusters for these nails, and then we're gonna do a nail. But you'll also get this Britney tease, okay? And we're gonna be talking about it here and there. So, get your snacks. If you want to pause and get your snacks, this is the time. We are drinking apple juice, and we got some. Girl, I got some fried chicken from Publix, girl. But my snacks. So get y'all snacks, and if y'all want to read the whole book together, let me know. Because maybe you want to know, but you don't have Audible credits and you don't want to spend $24.99. Or maybe you just like the segment in the commentary. So we're going to see how it go. Y'all let me know how y'all feel in the comments. We're going to get started. Pay attention.
This is Audible.
Pay attention.
Simon & Schuster Audio presents The Woman in Me by Britney Spears. Read by Michelle Williams. With an introduction read by the author.
For my boys, who are the loves of my life.
What?
This book has been a labor of love and all the emotions that come with it. Reliving everything that you're about to hear has been exciting, heart-wrenching.
That's supposed to be Britney Spears. Okay, commentary point number 1. It is a great thing they did not choose her to read her own damn book, because I would not be able to sit through however many chapters this is. So let that be a message to you if you ever put a book on Audible. It is key that you get someone to read your book in a pleasant tone. Girl.
And emotional, to say the least. For those reasons, I will only be reading a small part of my audiobook.
Good God.
I'm so grateful to the amazing Michelle Williams for reading the rest of it. And to you for listening. Prologue. As a little girl, I walked for hours alone in the silent woods behind my house in Louisiana singing songs. Being outside gave me a sense of aliveness and danger. When I was growing up, my mother and father fought constantly. He was an alcoholic. I was usually scared in my home. Outside wasn't necessarily heaven either, but it was my world. Call it heaven or hell, it was mine. Before going home, I would follow a path to our neighbor's house, through a landscape yard, and past a swimming pool. They had a rock garden full of small, soft pebbles that would trap the heat and stay warm in a way that felt so good against my skin. I would lie down on the rocks and look up at the sky, feeling the warmth from below and above, thinking, I can make my own way in life. I can make my dreams come true. Lying quietly on those rocks, I felt God. Chapter 1. Raising kids in the South.
Hold on, girl. Now, let me just tell you, already, I feel like she really threw her daddy. Girl. I know Jamie somewhere like, what the fuck? Oh, now you was scared. Now you, okay, Brittany. We're gonna listen.
Used to be more about respecting your parents and keeping your mouth shut. Today, the rules have reversed. It's more about respecting the kids. Disagreeing with a parent was never permitted in my house. No matter how bad it got, there was an understanding to stay mute, and if I didn't, there were consequences. In the Bible, it says your tongue is your sword. My tongue and my sword were me singing. My whole childhood, I sang. I sang along with the car radio on the way to dance class. I sang when I was sad. To me, singing was spiritual. I was born and went to school in Macomb, Mississippi, and lived in Kentwood, Louisiana, 25 miles away. Everyone knew everyone in Kentwood. Doors were left unlocked. Social lives revolved around church and backyard parties. Kids were put in matching outfits, and everyone knew how to shoot a gun. The area's main historic site was Camp Moore, a Confederate training base built by Jefferson Davis. Each year, there are Civil War reenactments the weekend before Thanksgiving, and the sight of the people dressed up in military outfits was a reminder that the holiday was coming. I loved that time of year. Hot chocolate, the smell of the fireplace in our living room, the colors of the fall leaves on the ground. We had a little brick house with green-striped wallpaper and wood paneling. As a girl, I went to Sonic, rode go-karts, played basketball, and attended a Christian school called Park Lane Academy. The first time I was truly touched and got shivers down my spine was hearing our housekeeper singing in the laundry room. I always did the family laundry and ironing, but when times were better financially, my mom would hire someone to help. The housekeeper sang gospel music, and it was literally an awakening to a...
Now, y'all had a maid, though? Okay, girl. Okay.
Whole new world. I'll never forget it. Ever since then, my longing and passion to sing have grown. Singing is magic. When I sing, I own who I am. I can communicate purely. When you sing, you stop using the language of, "Hi, how are you?" You're able to say things that are much more profound. Singing takes me to a mystical place where language doesn't matter anymore, where anything is possible. All I wanted was to be taken away from the everyday world and into that realm where I could express myself without thinking. When I was alone with my thoughts, my mind filled with worries and fears. Music stopped the noise, made me feel confident, and took me to a pure place of expressing myself exactly as I wanted to be seen and heard. Singing took me into the presence of the divine. As long as I was singing, I was half outside the world. I'd be playing in the backyard like any kid would, but my thoughts and feelings and hopes were somewhere else. I worked hard to make things look the way I wanted them to. I took myself very seriously when I shot silly music videos to Mariah Carey songs in my girlfriend's backyard. By age 8, I thought I was a director. Nobody in my town seemed to be doing stuff like that, but I knew what I wanted to see in the world, and I tried to make it so. Artists make things and play characters because they want an escape into faraway worlds, and escape was exactly what I needed. I wanted to live inside my dreams, my wonderful fictitious world, and never think about reality if I could help it. Singing bridged reality and fantasy, the world I was living in, and the world I desperately wanted to inhabit. Tragedy runs in my family. My middle name comes from my father's mother, Emma Jean Spears, who went by Jean. I've seen pictures of her, and I understand why everyone said we look alike. Same blonde hair, same smile. She looked younger than she was. Her husband, my grandfather, June Spears Sr., was abusive. Gene suffered the loss of a baby when he was only 3 days old. June sent Gene to Southeast Louisiana Hospital, a by all accounts horrible asylum in Mandeville where she was put on lithium. In 1966, when she was 31, my grandmother Jean shot herself with a shotgun on her infant son's grave, just over 8 years after his death. I can't imagine the grief that she must have felt. The way people talk about men like June in the South is to say nothing was ever good enough for him, and that he was a perfectionist, that he was a very involved father. I would probably put it more harshly than that. A sports fanatic, June made my father exercise long past exhaustion. Each day when my father finished basketball practice, no matter how tired and hungry he was, he still had to shoot 100 more baskets before he could come inside. June was an officer for the Baton Rouge Police Department, and he eventually had 10 children with 3 wives.
Damn.
And as far as I can tell, no one has one good word to say about the first 50 years of his life. Even in my family, it was said that the Spears men tended to be bad news, especially in terms of how they treated women. Jean wasn't the only wife June sent to the mental hospital in Mandeville. He sent his second wife there, too. One of my father's half-sisters has said that June sexually abused her starting when she was 11 until she ran away at 16. My father was 13 when Jean died on that grave. I know that trauma is part of why my father was how he was with my siblings and me. Why, for him, nothing was ever good enough. My father pushed my brother to excel in sports. He drank until he couldn't think anymore. He'd disappear for days at a time. When my father drank, he was extremely mean. But June softened as he got older. I didn't experience the vicious man who had abused my father and his siblings, but rather a grandfather who seemed patient and sweet.
Sorry, I'll move my chair.
My father's world and my mother's world were completely opposite from each other.
Girl, get to it, child.
According to
We
my
didn't
mother,
record this
my
book
mom's
about
mom,
these people.
my grandmother Lily Portell was from an elegant, sophisticated family in London. She had an exotic air about her that everyone commented on. Her mother was British and her father was from the Mediterranean island of Malta. Her uncle was a bookbinder. The whole family played instruments and loved to sing. During World War II, Lily met an American soldier, my grandfather, Barney Bridges, at a dance for the soldiers. He was a driver for the generals, and he loved driving fast. She was disappointed, though, when he brought her with him to America. She'd imagined a life like what she had in London. As she rode to his dairy farm from New Orleans, she looked out the window of Barney's car and was troubled by how empty his world seemed. "Where are all the lights?" she kept asking her new husband. I sometimes think about Lily riding through the Louisiana countryside, looking out into the night, realizing that her large, vibrant, music-filled life of afternoon teas and London museums was about to become small and hard. Instead of going to the theater or shopping for clothes, she would have to spend her life cooped up in the country, cooking and cleaning and milking cows.
Damn.
So my grandmother kept to herself, read a ton of books, became obsessed with cleaning, and missed London until the day she died. My family said that Barney didn't want to let Lily go back to London because he thought that if she went, she wouldn't come home. My mother said Lily was so distracted by her own thoughts that she had a tendency to start clearing the table before everyone was done eating. All I knew was that my grandmother was beautiful and I loved copying her British accent. Talking in a British accent has always made me happy because it makes me think of her, my fashionable grandmother. I wanted to have manners and a lilting voice just like hers. Because Lily had money, my mother Lynn, her brother Sonny, and her sister Sandra grew up with what you might consider money, especially for rural Louisiana. Even though they were Protestant, my mom attended Catholic school. She was gorgeous as a teenager with her black hair worn short.
She'd always go to school wearing the highest boots and the tiniest skirts.
So this
She
is
hung
just
out
me
with the
getting
gay
out
guys in
my
town who gave her rides on their
bits.
motorcycles. My father took an interest in her, as well he might. And probably in part because June made him work so ridiculously hard, my father was unbelievably talented at sports. People would drive for miles just to see him play basketball. My mom saw him and she said, "Oh, who is this?" By all accounts, their relationship was born of mutual attraction and a sense of adventure. But the honeymoon was over long before I came along. Chapter 2.
Okay, so let's give
When they got married,
let's give it a little stop there, just so I don't know how much I'm going to edit this down. Just because she's a bit long-winded on the book. When I am reading a book, you kind of have to like get me up in there, or because I read a lot, or I'm gonna be out, you feel me? And I just feel like so far, I get that you want to tell me as a reader that your mother came from a British aristocratic, not even aristocratic, just like her mama, grandmama now was over there in the UK, and her daddy was basically from crazy people. His daddy drove his mama crazy and he was a whore. That's what she's giving. The thing about that is I don't really want you to open your book up like that because I don't care about those people, Brittany. I want, maybe if you want to tell me like later on in this book, like, hey, my grandfather was a piece of shit, I will feel, like you can give me some of that later, but right now I like when like celebrity biographies open up with like a crazy story and then they go into, okay, this is my life story. If you read a lot, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Does this count as reading if we're doing it with Audible? I feel like we're not really reading this book. Anyway, so I kind of like need you to like pull me in, and she has not pulled me in yet. If I was not like reviewing the book, right? She got 2 chapters because she's just giving me like, and we will see. Like she's about to give you a runaround on this autobiography, like where you, or is it? I think it's an autobiography when they tell the story. Yeah, because you can tell like when they put a lot of the tea out in the pre. I say a lot. I'm working on that. You can tell when they put a lot of the tea out in the pre-book release press. She was giving up a lot of tea. And if you haven't heard it, I don't want to tell you yet. So I'm trying to be careful with my words and focus on my bling. So my mind is a bit, it's working. So, I'm like, already, because I had the book on standby, I'm like, damn, I hope they don't release all of the tea in the book promo. Like, we need something, and this is why I'm getting this book for free, because I feel like they was about to put all the good news. I mean, not the good news, but all the juicy bits looked like they were headed towards being in on TMZ. Like, well, then why would I need to sit here for 5 hours and read the book just to get those juicy bits? So it's just given to me, first chapter, like she's finna have a lot of filler in this book. It's not gonna go straight to juicy bits, but we shall see. Let's continue.
Parents lived in a small home in Kentwood.
We don't care.
My mother was no longer supported by her family, so my parents were very poor. They were young, too. My mom was 21 and my father was 23. In 1977, they had my big brother, Brian. When they left that first small place, they bought a little 3-bedroom ranch house. After Brian was born, my mom went back to school to become a teacher. My dad, who worked as a welder at oil refineries, hard jobs that would last a month or sometimes 3, started to drink heavily, and before too long, that was taking its toll on the family. The The way my mom tells it, a couple of years into the...
So let this be a lesson to you when you have substance abuse problems in children. And I, being a child of a parent that has substance abuse problems, as you can see, this book hasn't been going not 10 minutes. And as an adult, she has mentioned that Jamie, and her daddy named Jamie, that Jamie is an alcoholic. Like five, like every 5 minutes, Jamie, my dad's an alcoholic. My dad's an alcoholic. My dad's an alcoholic. And it's just, everybody doesn't respond the same way to their parents' addictions, but it's giving that she is about to hold Jamie to the fire for his alcohol addiction. And it's going to be interesting to see how she describes her father, because, hold on, I need a little drink. My throat get dry, honey. Because, you want to believe in a certain respect for your parents and things that you would or wouldn't say about your parents publicly. I know it's just, I mean, my mom, I love her to death. But let's just say my mom wasn't shit. I don't think I would just come up on a public platform and be like, my dad's an alcoholic. My dad's an alcoholic. Now, I know that might seem hypocritical because you're like, well, you're saying your dad's has an issue, but that's what I'm trying to get y'all to see, the relationship that you have with your healthy parent. If you have a healthy parent or you're lucky enough, and then the relationship with your parent, like you don't even feel the same. And it's really interesting to see that dynamic. Like if you got a parent that you respect more than the other, and I don't know how she's going to describe her mother, because I think I always thought that Britney Spears was more partial to her father and that she was further away from her mother. But, and I don't even bash my dad. It's more so that my dad has owned his addiction, and so it's not private. He's just very public about it. Y'all, we didn't talk about this. But I'm just saying, like, if I just feel like she's a little bit salty about her dad being a drunk, and it's going to be interesting at how this story goes. Is it funny? No. And yes. Okay. It's my commentary, and I don't care.
Marriage, my grandfather Barney, my mom's dad, died in a car accident.
I don't know if I like this cluster.
And in the aftermath, my dad went on a bender, missing Brian's first birthday party. When Brian was a toddler, my father got drunk at a Christmas party and went AWOL on Christmas morning.
So don't know.
That time, my mother said she'd had enough.
So
She went to stay with Lily. That March of 1980, she filed for divorce. But June and June's new wife begged her to take him back, and she did. For a while, apparently, everything was calm. My dad stopped welding and started a construction business. Then, after a lot of struggle, he got a gym business going, too. It was called Total Fitness, and it transformed some of the men in town, including my uncles, into bodybuilders. He ran it in a detached studio space on our property next door to the house. An endless string of muscular men streamed in and out of the gym, flexing their muscles in the mirrors under fluorescent lights. My dad started doing really well. In our little town, he became one of the most well-off men. My family threw big backyard crawfish boils. They had crazy parties with dancing all night long. I've always assumed their secret ingredient for staying up all night was speed, since that was the drug of choice back then.
Damn.
My mom opened a daycare center with her sister, my Aunt Sandra. To cement their marriage, my parents had a second baby, me. I was born on December 2nd, 1981. My mother never missed an opportunity to recall that she was in excruciating labor with me for 21 hours.
She's a Sagittarius? That explains a lot.
I loved the women in my family. My Aunt Sandra, who already had 2 sons, had a surprise baby at 35, my cousin Laura Lynn. Just a few months apart, Laura Lynn and I were like twins, and we were best friends. Laura Lynn was always like a sister to me, and Sandra was a second mother. She was so proud of me and so encouraging. And even though my grandmother Jean was gone long before I was born, I was lucky enough to know her mother, my great-grandmother, Lexi Pierce. Lexi was wicked beautiful.
Who cares?
Made up with a white face, and
I'm gonna be honest with you, like Brittany, I don't care. Okay, like I don't. This book is putting me to sleep. Like I'm not even gonna lie to you. I'm telling you, I know good books. Y'all, if you read the book, let me know. And it's just, if I was reading this, I would be like, girl, because I don't care about your family history. I get that you are trying to get me to see where you came from, but I can tell you as a person who listens and reads books that this is filler we do not give a shit about. No one cares about your grandma, Jane, and Susie Q, and that she was beautiful. We don't give a shit, ma'am. Okay? 5 hours of this is about to make me a little bit salty. But I'm going to listen for y'all. I'm going to listen for y'all.
Red lipstick.
Lord, it's been 3 minutes.
She was a badass, more and more so as she got older. I was told, and had no trouble believing, that she'd been married 7 times. 7. Obviously, she disliked her son-in-law, June, but after her daughter, Jean, died, she stuck around and took care of
they got so many of these country-ass names. I can't even keep up with the who's who if I wanted to.
Lexi and I were very close. My most vivid and joyful memories of being a little girl are of time spent with her. We'd have sleepovers, just the two of us. At night, we'd go through her makeup cabinet. In the morning, she would make me a huge breakfast. Her best friend, who lived next door, would come over to visit, and we'd listen to slow 1950s ballads from Lexi's record collection.
I'm gonna have to turn this
During the day, Lexi and I would nap together.
Who cares?
I loved nothing more than drifting off to sleep by her side, smelling her face powder and her perfume, listening as her breathing grew deep and regular. One day, Lexi and I went to rent a movie. As we drove away from the video rental place, she ran into another car, then got stuck in a hole. We couldn't get out. A tow truck had to come rescue us. That accident scared my mother. From then on, I wasn't allowed to hang out with my great-grandmother.
What the hell?
It wasn't even a bad accident, I told my mother. I begged to see Lexi. She was my favorite person.
I don't think I like that.
No, I'm afraid she's getting senile, my mom said.
Oh, after I've been watching kids for free, I can't be around them, bitch.
After that, I saw her at my house. But I couldn't get in the car with her or have sleepovers with her ever again. It was a huge loss for me. I didn't understand how being with someone I loved could be considered dangerous.
Now I'm going to leave space because I'm doing some other things with these nails.
At that age, my favorite thing to do, besides spending time with Lexi, was hiding in cabinets. It became a family joke. Where's Brittany now? At my aunt's house, I always disappeared. Everyone would mount a search for me. Just when they'd start to panic, they'd open a cabinet door, and there I'd be. I must have wanted them to look for me. For years, that was my thing, to hide. Hiding was one way I got attention. I also loved dancing and singing. I sang in the choir of our church, and I took dance classes 3 nights a week and on Saturdays. Then I added gymnastics classes an hour away in Covington, Louisiana. When it came to dancing and singing and acrobatics, I couldn't get enough. At career day in elementary school, I said I was going to be a lawyer. But neighbors and teachers started to say that I was Broadway bound. And eventually I embraced my identity as the little entertainer. I was 3 at my first dance recital and 4 when I sang my first solo, What Child Is This?, for a Christmas program at my mother's daycare. I wanted to hide, but I also wanted to be seen. Both things could be true. Crouched in the cool darkness of a cabinet, I felt so small I could disappear. But with everyone's eyes on me, I became something else. Someone who could command a room. In white tights, belting out a song, I felt like anything was possible. Chapter 3. Miss Lynn, the boy shouted. He was out of breath, panting at our front door. You have to come now. One day when I was 4, I was in the living room of our house, sitting on the couch with my mom on one side and my friend Cindy on the other. Kentwood was like a town in a soap opera. There was always drama. Cindy was chattering away to my mom about the latest scandal while I was listening in, trying to follow along, when the door burst open. The boy's facial expression was enough for me to know something terrifying had happened. My heart dropped. My mother and I started running. The road had just been repaved and I was barefoot, running on the hot black tar. Ow, ow, ow! I yelped with every step. I looked down at my feet and saw the tar sticking to them. Finally, we arrived at the field where my brother Brian had been playing with his neighbor friends. They had been trying to mow down some tall grass with their four-wheelers. This seemed like a fantastic idea to them because they were idiots. Inevitably, they couldn't see one another through the tall grass and had a head-on collision. I must have seen everything. Heard Brian hollering in pain, my mother screaming in fear, but I don't remember any of it. I think God made me black out so I wouldn't remember the pain and panic or the sight of my brother's crushed body. A helicopter airlifted him to the hospital. When I visited Brian days later, he was in a full body cast. From what I could see, he'd broken nearly every bone in his body, and the detail that drove it all home for me as a kid was that he had to pee through a hole in the cast. The other thing I couldn't help but notice was that the whole room was full of toys. My parents were so grateful he'd survived, and they felt so bad for him that during his recovery, every day was Christmas. My mom catered to my brother because of guilt. She still defers to him to this day. It's funny how one split second. Family's dynamics forever.
Hold, I got another speaker.
Power on. Bluetooth setup. Searching. Bluetooth device is connected.
To my brother. Our bond was formed out of my sincere, genuine recognition of his pain. Once he came home from the hospital, I wouldn't leave his side. I slept beside him every night. He couldn't get in bed because he still had the full body cast. So he had a special bed, and they had to set up a little mattress for me at the foot of it. Sometimes I'd climb into his bed and just hold him. Once the cast came off, I continued to share a bed with him for years.
Weirdo.
Even as a very little girl, I knew that between the accident and how hard our dad was on him, my brother had a difficult life. I wanted to bring him comfort.
I'm sorry. Girls and boys need separate
Finally,
rooms.
after years of this, my mom told me, Brittany,
People
now
need
you're almost in the
privacy.
6th grade. You need to start sleeping by yourself.
Exactly.
I said no. I was such a baby.
But I know a lot of
I did
brothers
not
and
want to
sisters
sleep by
close like
myself.
that. I
But
don't
she
know if that's
insisted,
normal
and
because I
finally I
don't
had
have
to
a
give in.
brother.
Once I started to stay in my own room, I came to enjoy having my own space. But I remained extremely close to my brother. He loved me, and I loved him so much. For him, I felt the most endearing, protective love. I didn't want him ever to be hurt. I'd seen him suffer too much already. As my brother got better, we became heavily involved with the community. Since it was a small town of just a couple thousand people, everyone came out to support the 3 main parades a year. Mardi Gras, 4th of July, Christmas. The whole town looked forward to them. The streets would be lined with people smiling, waving, leaving behind the drama of their lives for a day to have fun, watching their neighbors slowly wander by on Highway 38. One year, a bunch of us kids decided to decorate a golf cart and put it in the Mardi Gras parade. There were probably 8 kids in that golf cart, way too many, obviously. There were 3 on the bench seat, a couple standing on the sides holding onto the little roof, and 1 or 2 swinging from the back. It was so heavy that the tires of the cart were almost flat. We all wore 19th century costumes. I can't even remember why. I was sitting on the laps of the bigger kids up front, waving at everyone. The problem was, with that many kids in a golf cart and its flat tires, the thing got hard to control, and with the laughing and the waving and the excited energy, well, we only hit the car ahead of us a few times. But that was...
Now, I'm telling you because I just listened to Holly Madison's book, from the Playboy Mansion, Girls Next Door, her. And I can tell you, like, that book, I literally want to binge listen immediately. I'm telling you, let me know if it is just me. I don't know if it's Michelle Williams reading this. I don't think it's Michelle. I just think there's a lot of, why are you telling me, like, everything that she's already said could have been summed up. I don't know how many pages this would have been in her book, but girl, this is unnecessary for me right now.
Enough for us to get expelled from the parade. Chapter 4.
You see, and they just jump around. Like,
when my father started drinking heavily.
Usually when there's a story or a reference with, like, celebrity biographies, the story usually references back. I'm going to hope that she's giving me some of these little bits and crannies. That because she's got, like, some kind of connecting point later on in the future. But let me know if I'm being harsh on her book review, because I fool with Britney. But as a celebrity biography, if I was reading this with my eyeballs and paper, I would put it down. And I'm an avid reader, actual reader. It's just, to me, like, girl, or move the pages forward. What is it? Skip. That's the word I'm looking for. It is late for me. I need to go to fucking bed, but I need to do my nails, and I got some shit to do tomorrow, so I gotta do these nails. But I just feel like she's giving a lot of, like, unnecessary damn information for a book that's supposed to be about her, and knowing that you've got, like, a lot of tea that people want to know about, and you're, like, filling all this. When I was 4, when I was 3, girl, skip to at least when you about Mickey Mouse Club age. I don't know. I just feel like it's not pulling me in to Britney Spears' story. It's almost like, okay, I got the tea, and if there's any more tea in this book, right? Like, say it like I was saying, you know, they've or did I say they've released a lot of the, I guess, big spoilers on TMZ, waiting on the book to come out. So it's like, if I was sitting there reading this book and it was boring to me, I might assume, you know what, they probably already told the good pieces, you know, it's all on TMZ, and I would just stop reading. I would be like, I don't need to read Britney Spears' book or even listen to it, because the best parts have already been woken up. Now, I'm hoping that, let me show you what I used. I used this not polished nude panther, and the not polished black, and then the dynamic clear. Now, like I said, I'm hoping that these stories lead to something else, and that she's gonna, you know, they're what do you call that? Foreshadowing for the future. But Britney is long-winded.
Again, his business started to fail.
And she keep calling Jamie an alcoholic.
Compounded by the chaos of my father's extreme mood swings. I was particularly scared to get in the car with my dad because he would talk.
She's mad as fuck at her dad. Like, how many times are you going to tell us this man drinks? Okay? Like, and here is my critique on this. I'm not discounting her story. What I want you to understand, that literally speaking, and as far as a format of a book, especially because the book is not about Jamie, you kind of gotta, if you're gonna talk about him and his alcoholism, I'm gonna need you to stay on that. You've been on the grandparents, the brother, the mama, and this, but you keep going back to Jamie. Just get to why you're mad at fucking Jamie, or stay on that. But girl, who edited this damn book?
To himself.
Who edited this shit?
Couldn't understand the words he was saying. He seemed to be in his own world.
I'm not gonna prep, because y'all know I take my nails off.
I knew even then that my father had
probably in like 4 days
to lose himself in drinking. He
So
was
won't be no
stressed out by
problem.
work. Now I see even more clearly that he was self-medicating after enduring years of abuse at the hands of his father, June. At the time, though, I had no idea why he was so hard on us. Why nothing we did seemed to be quite good enough for him. The saddest part to me was that what I always wanted was a dad who would love me as I was. Somebody who would say, I just love you. You could do anything right.
I don't know Britney Spears, right? I don't know Britney, but I just, in celebrity life, it could all be fake. It could all be This is giving. I'm gonna get your ass back for that conservatorship. I don't believe her dad didn't love her. I've always, as far as the Britney Spears story, heard that her dad sacrificed a lot for them to her to be who she is, like, and be on the Mickey Mouse Club. And I think he was at, according to the stories that this is her story, but so this is why it's taking me a bit back as like let me know, I was low-key a Jamie fan. I know people think the conservatorship was harsh, and it is a little harsh, but I do think as a parent, when you have your child's best interest at heart, I just think Britney would have been a lot worse off if she didn't have some type of guidance. Didn't need to be as strict as what it was. We got to get through the story and see what she's gonna say, but it's given that Britney needed supervision. Okay, like, now that she's off of the conservatorship, it's given that Britney has mental health issues. There's no doubt about that. But I don't think her father necessarily. He just doesn't give scumbag dad to me. You can have a substance abuse problem, I think, and be a good parent. It's possible, because we don't know Jamie's story. This is her perception, and so this is just it's very, very interesting because she's the child of an addict, and this is her perception of how her childhood went or was. And so her dad might have a completely different perception. I might have a completely different perception of maybe what I thought it was, but this is Britney Spears' perception, I guess, publicly, of her father. But it's just the subtext to this book is that Britney is, see what I'm doing here. Britney is super pissed off at her dad, and she's like, I'm gonna let this man have it. Like, I'm gonna tell he's he's a drunk every 5 seconds, like, we have not resolved these family issues at all.
Now, I'd still love you with unconditional love. My dad was reckless, cold, and mean with me, but he was even harder on Brian. He pushed him so hard to do well in sports that it was cruel. Brian's life in those years was much rougher than mine because our father put him through the same brutal regimen June had pushed on him. Brian was forced to do basketball and also football, even though he wasn't built for it. My dad could also be abusive with my mom, but he was more the type of drinker who would go away for days at a time. To be honest, it was a kindness to us when he went away. I preferred it when he wasn't there. What made his time at home especially bad was that my mom would argue with him all night long. He was so drunk he couldn't talk. I don't know if he could even hear her, but we could. Brian and I had to suffer the consequences of her rage, which meant not being able to sleep through the night. Her screaming voice would echo through the house. I'd storm out into the living room in my nightgown and beg her, just feed him and go put him to bed, he's sick. She was arguing with this person who wasn't even conscious. But she wouldn't listen. I would go back to bed furious, staring daggers at the ceiling, listening to her yell, cursing her in my heart. Isn't that awful? He was the one who was drunk. He was the one whose alcoholism had made us so poor. He was the one passed out in the chair. But she was the one who ended up pissing me off the most. Because at least in those moments he was quiet. I was so desperate to sleep, and she wouldn't shut up. In spite of all the nightly drama, by day my mom made our home a place my friends wanted to come to, at least when my father respected us enough to drink somewhere else. All the kids from the neighborhood came over. Our house was, for lack of a better word, the cool house. We had a high bar with 12 chairs around it. My mom was a typical...
Girl, is y'all poor or not? Y'all have maids and parties, and I didn't grow up with the struggle, so don't think it's a hating thing. I'm trying to get a glimpse, because she's all over the place, where struggling, but we own businesses, and we're, you know, it's not, we have a maid, but sometimes, and we have a gym. It's like, girl, what's going on? You know, like, who edited Britney Spears' story?
Young Southern mom, often gossiping, always smoking cigarettes with her friends at the bar. She smoked Virginia Slims, the same cigarettes I smoke now, or talking with them on the phone. I was dead to all of them. The older kids would sit on the bar chairs in front of the TV and play video games. I was the youngest one. I didn't know how to play video games, so I always had to fight to get the older kids' attention. Our house was a zoo. I was always dancing on the coffee table for attention, and my mom was always chasing after Brian when he was little, jumping over couches, trying to catch him so she could spank him after back-talking her. I was always overly excited, trying to draw the older kids' eyes away from the screen in the living room, or to get the adults to stop talking to one another in the kitchen. "Brittany, stop!" my mother would yell. "We have company. Just be nice. Be on good behavior." But I ignored her, and I would always find a way to get everyone's attention. Chapter 5.
Okay.
I was quiet.
So I feel like that little chapter moved a little bit smoother. Okay, like you're getting to the point. You're bringing it. Okay, like, come on, girl, tell me what's happening. You know, you gave me some tea. This is the story. You know, but that first 4, girl, like, what the fuck? 4 chapters of the first, girl. You could have summed everything up like you just did in chapter 5. Put it all in there and leave it at that.
And small, but when I sang, I came alive. And I'd taken enough gymnastics classes to be able to move well. When I was 5, I entered a local dance competition. My talent was a dance routine done wearing a top hat and twirling a cane. I won. Then my mom started taking me around to contests all over the region. In old photos and videos, I'm wearing the most ridiculous things. In my 3rd grade musical, I wore a baggy purple t-shirt with a huge purple bow on top of my head that made me look like a Christmas present. It was absolutely horrible. I worked my way through the talent circuit, winning a regional contest in Baton Rouge. Before too long, my parents set their sights on bigger opportunities than what we could accomplish picking up prizes in school gymnasiums. When they saw an advertisement in the newspaper for an open call for the all-new Mickey Mouse Club, they suggested we go. We drove 8 hours to Atlanta. There were more than 2,000 kids there. I had to stand out, especially once we learned after we arrived that they were only looking for kids over the age of 10. When the casting director, a man named Matt Casella, asked me how old I was, I opened my mouth to say 8, then remembered the age 10 cutoff and said 9. He looked at me skeptically. For my audition, I sang Sweet Georgia Brown while doing a dance routine, adding in some gymnastics flips. They narrowed the group of thousands from across the country down to a handful of kids, including a beautiful girl from California a few years older than me named Carrie Russell. A girl from Pennsylvania named Christina Aguilera and I were told we hadn't made the cut, but that we were talented. Matt said we could probably get on the show once we were a little older and more experienced. He told my mom that he thought we should go to New York City to work. He recommended we look up an agent he liked who helped young performers get started in the theater. We didn't go right away. Instead, for about 6 months, I stayed in Louisiana and I went to work, waiting tables at Lexi's seafood restaurant, Granny's Seafood and Deli, to help out. The restaurant had a terrible fishy smell. Still, the food was amazing, unbelievably good. And it became the new hangout for all the kids. The deli's back room was where my brother and all his friends would get drunk in high school. Meanwhile, out on the floor at age 9, I was cleaning shellfish and serving plates of food while doing my prissy dancing in my cute little outfits. My mom sent footage of me to the agent Matt had recommended, Nancy Carson. In the video, I was singing Shine On Harvest Moon. It worked. She asked us to come to New York and meet with her. After I sang for Nancy in her office 20 stories up in a building in Midtown Manhattan, we got back on the Amtrak and headed home. I had been officially signed by a talent agency. Not long after we got back to Louisiana, my little sister Jamie Lynn was born. Laura Lynn and I spent hours playing with her in the playhouse like she was another one of our dolls. A few days after she came home with the baby, I was getting ready for a dance competition when my mother started acting strangely. She was hand-sewing a rip in my costume, but while working the needle and thread, she just up and threw the costume away. She didn't seem to know what she was doing. The costume was a piece of shit, frankly, but I needed it to compete. "Mama, why did you throw my costume away?" I said. Then all of a sudden there was blood. Blood everywhere.
Oh.
Something hadn't been sewn up properly after she gave birth. She was gushing blood. I screamed for my father. "What's wrong with her?" I yelled. "What's wrong with her?" Daddy rushed in and drove her to the hospital. The whole way I kept screaming, "Something cannot be wrong with my mom." I was 9. To see a river of blood flowing out of your mother would be traumatic for anyone. But for a child at that age, it was terrifying. I had never seen that much blood before. Once we got to the doctor, they fixed her in what felt to me like 2 seconds. No one even seemed that concerned. Apparently, postpartum hemorrhage isn't that uncommon, but it lodged in my memory. At gymnastics class, I'd always check to make sure my mom was on the other side. Chapter 5.
No.
I was quiet and small, but when I sang, I came alive. And I had taken enough gymnastics classes to be able to move well. When I was 5, I entered a local dance competition. My talent was a
Why my
dance
drill
routine done
fucking
wearing a
won't
top
come on?
hat
You
and
better come
twirling a
on.
cane.
Amazon.
I won.
I just recommended
Then my
this.
mom started taking me around to contests all over the region. In old photos and videos, I'm wearing the most ridiculous things.
Look.
In my 3rd grade musical, I wore a baggy purple t-shirt with a huge purple bow on top of my head that made me look like a Christmas present. It was absolutely horrible. I worked my way through the talent circuit, winning a regional contest in Baton Rouge. Before too long, my parents set their sights on bigger opportunities than what we could accomplish picking up prizes in school gymnasiums. When they saw an advertisement in the newspaper for an open call for the all-new Mickey Mouse Club, they suggested we go. We drove 8 hours to Atlanta. "Costume away," I said. Then all of a sudden there was blood. Blood everywhere. Something hadn't been sewn up properly after she gave birth. She was gushing blood. I screamed to my father. "What's wrong with her?" I yelled. "What's wrong with her?" Daddy rushed in and drove her to the hospital. The whole way I kept screaming, "Something cannot be wrong with my mom." I was 9. To see a river of blood flowing out of your mother would be traumatic for anyone. But for a child at that age, it was terrifying. I had never seen that much blood before. Once we got to the doctor, they fixed her in what felt to me like 2 seconds. No one even seemed that concerned. Apparently, postpartum hemorrhage isn't that uncommon, but it lodged in my memory. At gymnastics class, I'd always check to make sure my mom was on the other side of the window waiting for me to be done. It was a reflex, something I had to do to feel safe. But one day I did my usual check-in out the window and she wasn't there. I panicked. She'd left. She was gone, maybe forever. I started crying. I fell to my knees. Seeing me, you'd have thought someone had just died. My teacher rushed over to comfort me. "Honey, she's going to come back." She said, "It's okay. She probably just went to Walmart." It turned out that my mom had done exactly that. She had gone to Walmart. But it was not okay. I couldn't take her leaving. Seeing how upset I was when she got back, she never left that window during class again. And for the next few years, she never left my side. I was a little girl with big dreams. I wanted to be a star like Madonna, Dolly Parton, or Whitney Houston. I had simpler dreams, too. Dreams that seemed even harder to achieve and that felt too ambitious to say out loud. I want my dad to stop drinking. I want my mom to stop yelling. I want everyone to be okay. With my family, anything could go wrong at any time. I had no power there. Only while performing was I truly invincible. Standing in a Manhattan conference room in front of a woman who could make my dreams come true. At least one thing was completely within my control. Chapter 6. When I was 10, I was invited to be a contestant on Star Search. On the first show, I did a spunky version of a song I'd heard sung by Judy Garland, "I Don't Care." I got 3.75 stars. My rival, A girl who sang opera got 3.5. I advanced to the next round. The next episode taped later that day, and I was up against a bolo tie-wearing boy with a lot of hairspray in his hair named Marty Thomas, age 12. We were friendly. We even played basketball together before the show. I sang the Judds' Love Can Build a Bridge, which I'd sung the year before at my aunt's wedding. While we were waiting for our scores, Marty and I were interviewed on stage by the host, Ed McMahon. I noticed last week you have the most adorable, pretty eyes, he said to me. Do you have a boyfriend?
See, my drill, something's
No,
wrong with
sir,
her.
I said.
I'm gonna order another
Why
one.
not? They're mean.
I'm gonna order another one because this one is
Boyfriend?
acting up already.
You mean all boys are mean? I'm not mean. How about me? Well, it depends, I said. I get that a lot, Ed said. I got 3.75 again. Marty got a perfect 4. I smiled and hugged him politely, and as I walked off, Ed wished me luck. I kept it together until I made it backstage, but then I burst into tears. Afterward, my mom got me a hot fudge sundae. My mom and I kept flying back and forth to New York. The intensity of working in the city as a little girl was exciting for me, even if it was also intimidating. I got offered a job, an understudy role in the off-Broadway musical Ruthless, inspired by The Bad Seed, All About Eve, Mame, and Gypsy. I played a sociopathic child star named Tina Denmark. Tina's first song was called Born to Entertain. It hit close to home. The other understudy was a talented young actress named Natalie Portman. While I was doing the show, we rented a little apartment for my mom, baby Jamie Lynn, and me near my public school, the Professional Performing Arts School, and I took classes nearby at Broadway Dance Center. But mostly I passed my time at the Players Theater downtown. The experience was a validation in some way, proof I had enough talent to make it in the theatrical world. But it was a grueling schedule. There was no time to be a regular kid, or really make friends, because I had to work nearly every day. On Saturdays, there were 2 shows. I also didn't love being an understudy. I had to be at the theater every night until as late as midnight, in case I had to take over for the main Tina, Laura Bell Bundy. After a few months, she left, and I took over the lead, but I was awfully worn out. By the time Christmas came around, I desperately wanted to go home. And then I learned I was supposed to perform on Christmas Day. In tears, I asked my mom, "Am I really going to do this for Christmas?" I looked at the little mini tree in our apartment, thinking about the sturdy evergreen we'd have in our living room in Kentwood. In my little girl mind, I didn't understand why I'd want to do that, continue performing through the holidays. So I quit the show and went home. The schedule of New York City theater was just too rough on me at that age. One good thing did come out of it, though. I learned how to sing in a theater with small acoustics. The audience is right beside you, just 200 people in the room. Honestly, it's strange, but in that space, the feeling of singing is more electric. The closeness that you feel with the people in the audience is something special. Their energy made me stronger. With that experience under my belt, I auditioned again for the Mickey Mouse Club. Waiting to hear about the Mickey Mouse Club back in Kentwood, attending Park Lane Academy, I became a basketball point guard. I was tiny for 11, but I could run the plays. People imagine I was a cheerleader, but I never was. I danced a little bit on this side, but at school I wanted to play ball, so I did in spite of my height. I had this huge number 25 jersey, way too big for me. I was a little bitty mouse zipping around out there. I had a crush for a while on a basketball player who was 15 or 16. He made every three-pointer, and he made it look easy. People would come from far away to see him play, just like they had to see my dad. He was good. Not as good as my dad had been, but still a genius with the ball. I marveled at him and my friends who were taller than me. My thing was to steal the ball away from an opposing player, mid-dribble, run down, and make a layup. I loved the thrill of quickly weaving around the other team, just the rush of no script, the play being unpredictable, completely unknown, made me feel so alive. I was so small and so sweet that no one saw me coming. It wasn't the same as being on stage in New York City, but under the bright lights on the court, waiting for the sound of applause, it felt like the next best thing. Chapter 7. My second audition for the Mickey Mouse Club got me booked. Matt, the nice casting director who had referred my mom to our agent Nancy, decided I was ready. Being in the show was boot camp for the entertainment industry. There were extensive dance rehearsals, singing lessons, acting classes, time in the recording studio, and school in between. The Mouseketeers quickly split into our own cliques, divided by the dressing rooms that we shared. Christina Aguilera and I were the younger kids. We shared a dressing room with another girl, Nikki DeLoach. We looked up to the older kids, Kerry Russell, Ryan Gosling, and Tony Lucca, who I thought was so handsome. And quickly I connected with a boy named Justin Timberlake. We were shooting at Disney World in Orlando, and my mom and Jamie Lynn, who at the time was 2 years old, had come along with me. During the day, for our breaks, the cast would go ride rides and goof off. It was honestly a kid's dream, unbelievably fun, particularly for a kid
That does
like
sound
me.
like fun, working on a Disney
But it was also
show.
exceptionally hard
You can
work.
go into Disney World when
We
you
would run
want.
choreography 30 times in a day, trying to get every step perfect. The only bad moment was when, not long into filming, we got a call that my grandmother Lily had died. Maybe because of a heart attack or stroke, she drowned in the pool while swimming. We couldn't afford to fly home for the funeral, but Lynn Harless, Justin's kind mother, lent us the plane fare. It was something family would do, and the kids and parents on that show became family. One day, Tony was looking for a hat that a wardrobe person had left in the girls' room, and he came into our dressing room. He walked in, and my heart fell out of my chest. He was my crush. I couldn't believe the guy had just walked into my dressing room. My little heart just went to the floor. Another time at a sleepover, we played a game of truth or dare, and someone dared Justin to kiss me. A Janet Jackson song was playing in the background as he leaned in and kissed me. It took me back to a moment in the library when I was in the 3rd grade, holding a guy's hand for the first time. It was the biggest deal to me. So real, so powerful. That was the first time somebody had paid me any sort of romantic attention, and it felt like a wonderful rebellion. The lights were off. We'd been watching a movie, and we hid our hands underneath the desk so the teachers couldn't see. The Mickey Mouse Club was a terrific experience. It got my feet wet in TV. Performing on that show ignited me. From then on, I knew I wanted to do what I did there, singing and dancing. When the show ended a year and a half later, a lot of my castmates were going off to New York or Los Angeles to continue chasing their dreams. But I decided to go back to Kentwood. Already within me was a push-pull. Part of me wanted to keep building toward the dream. The other part wanted to live a normal life in Louisiana. For a minute, I had to let normalcy win. Back at home, I returned to Park Lane, settling into normal teenage life, or the closest thing to normal that was possible in my family. For fun, starting when I was in 8th grade, my mom and I would make the 2-hour drive from Kentwood to Biloxi, Mississippi, and while we were there, we would drink daiquiris. We called our cocktails toddies. I loved that I was able to drink with my mom every now and then.
What?
The way we drank was nothing like how my father did it. When he drank, he grew more depressed and shut down.
Oh.
We became happier.
So, because y'all
More
having a good
alive
time
and
with
adventurous.
underage drinking, y'all want to bash
Some
Jamie.
of my best times with my mom were those trips we took to the beach with my sister. As we'd drive, I'd sip on a little bitty White Russian. To me, the drink tasted like ice cream.
But
I
he
had
didn't
the
love
perfect amount
you.
of shaved ice and cream
Okay,
and sugar
girl.
and not too much alcohol. That
Okay,
was my
girl.
piece of heaven.
Okay, girl.
My sister and I had matching bathing suits and matching perms. Now it's basically illegal to give a little kid a perm, but back in the 90s, it was just cute as hell. At 3, Jamie Lynn was a living doll, the craziest, most adorable child ever. So that was our thing. We'd go to Biloxi, drink, go to the beach, come back happy. And we had fun. We had a lot of fun. Even amid all the darkness, there was still a lot of joy in my childhood. By 13, I was drinking with my mom and smoking with my friends.
All right, wait a minute.
I had my first cigarette at my one.
I told y'all she was mad at Jamie. I told y'all she mad at Jamie. But you're not mad at Lynn. You're not mad at Lynn. This is dysfunctional as shit. And so I wonder how her mother feels hearing this, because so many people are going to be like, girl, you was out here drinking with your fucking mom and smoke, like, drinking with your fucking parents, but your mom? Like, your mom is supposed to be your protector. Like, these boundaries, you know, like, I can only imagine if all of this is true, because I don't know these people, girl, like, child, this is just classic dysfunction. And this doesn't even sound like, oh, it's because my kid's in Hollywood. Like, this is giving, like, you let your kid drink even if y'all were not in Hollywood, girl. Now, see, the book is getting juicy now. And this is chapter 7. She should have started with this.
Bad friend's house. All my other friends were geeks, but this friend was popular. Her sister was a senior, and she always had the best makeup, and guys were all over her. She took me out to a shed and handed me my first cigarette. Even though it was just tobacco, I felt high. I remember thinking, am I going to die? Is this feeling going to go away? When is this feeling going to go away? Once I survived my first cigarette, I immediately wanted another one. I did a pretty good job hiding my habit from my mother.
Why? Y'all drinking?
She was having me drive us home from the store along the long road that led to our house. I started driving at 13, too, when suddenly she started sniffing the air. I smell smoke, she said. Have you been smoking? She grabbed one of my hands off the wheel fast and pulled it to her to smell. As she did that, I lost control of the wheel and the car spun off the road. It felt like everything was moving in slow motion. I looked back and saw little Jamie Lynn pressed backward into the seat. She had on a seatbelt, but what...
Okay, so your mom is letting you drive at 13. She's in the car. Your little sister's in the back in a car seat. And she's concerned about you smoking? Okay.
It wasn't in a car seat.
She wasn't in a car seat.
It felt like very slowly. No. I kept thinking, we're going to die. We're going to die. We're going to die.
Who the hell edited this
Then
book?
wham! The butt of the car hit a telephone pole. Hitting the way we did was a miracle. If we'd hit the pole going forward, we would have gone through the windshield. My mother jumped out of the car and just started yelling at me for crashing, at cars passing by for help, at the world for letting this happen. No one was hurt, fortunately. All 3 of us walked away. Even better, my mom forgot all about how she'd caught me smoking. The crime of teenage me smoking, whatever, we almost died. After that, she never mentioned it again. One day, some of the boys in the 6th grade at school asked me to go smoke a cigarette in their locker room during break. I was the only girl they ever asked to join them. I've never felt cooler. Fortunately, the boys' locker room had 2 doors, one of which led to the outside. I remember we jammed the door open so the smoke could escape and we wouldn't get caught. It became a ritual, but it didn't last. A little while later, I decided to try it on my own, without the boys. This time, my best girlfriend and I went to smoke in the girls' locker room, but that room only had 1 door. Disaster. We got caught red-handed and were sent to the principal's office. Were you smoking? The principal asked. No, I said. My best friend reached down and secretly pinched my hand so hard. It was clear the principal didn't believe me, but guess what? Somehow we actually got away with just a warning. Later, my friend said, I swear to God, Brittany, you're the worst liar I've ever seen in my life. Let me do the talking next time, please. I wasn't just drinking and smoking by that age. I was precocious when it came to boys. I had a huge crush on one of the guys who was always hanging around at my bad friend's house. He was 18 or 19.
But wait a minute. Wait a
and he had
minute.
girlfriend
Wait a
at the time,
minute.
a tomboy.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Hold
They were
on.
really together. The it couple at our school.
So you over here drinking, smoking, and underage driving, wrecking shit, but she's the bad friend? She's the bad friend? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I wished he'd look at me, but I didn't have much hope given that I was 5 years younger than him. One night I was sleeping over at my bad friend's house. With no warning, the guy I had a crush on snuck into the house in the middle of the night. It must have been 3 in the morning. I was sleeping on the couch and I woke up to him sitting next to me.
This nigga.
He started kissing me.
He's a rapist.
And then we were fully making out on the...
He's a rapist. He done broke in the damn house. Girl. Y'all, let's take a break. So I can go wash my hands, because little Britney here, girl. It's Britney, bitch. Now, see, now, as I said, now the story is getting a bit juicier. But there's definitely, you can see that this family has an issue with boundaries and rules and what's acceptable and what isn't, child. Now, this is a little, now it's tea for a biography, but it is a little bit, girl. Okay, well, I don't know what the hell they thought, because I feel like even if Britney Spears wasn't a celebrity that with parents that let you drink and smoke and have no structure and just want to be your friend more than they want to be your parent, I can't imagine how she wouldn't have been like an alcoholic or something by the time she was of working age. I mean, she drinking and smoking at, I think at this point, because she's all over with these damn ages, what, 12, 13? And it's giving like she was an actual drinker. Not like, okay, you might slip a little taste of somebody's drink or something like that. And, you know, if your parents aren't around, you stick a taste of your dad's beer or something. My mother doesn't drink. So, you know, like when I was a kid, you definitely try to sneak a taste of your dad's beer when you're little, right? But it's something you definitely would get the hell in trouble for, and your parents would not encourage. And usually once you taste it, you're like, ew, this is gross, right? But this is giving Britney Spears would drink and smoke regardless of her future as a celeb. Girl, look how good that look. I didn't even have to file it. Just with the e-file. It's just giving like Britney Spears might have had some issues regardless of her celebrity. And I think like people would want to say, well, she's a Disney child and this is why Britney Spears is crazy and her family took advantage of her. And it's giving not protected. I feel like as a child, her family owes her the right of being protected, meaning you find out your kid is drinking or smoking, you handle that accordingly. They're grounded. If they have a problem, you get them some help, but you definitely don't encourage it and do it with them. And so this family seems a bit troubled. All right, I'll be back.